Dear comrades, thank you for opportunity to tell my opinion about the situation in Donbass, in Ukraine, in all post-Soviet area. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Alexey Albu. I am 37. I was born in Odessa, in Ukraine, in Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. All my life I lived in Odessa. I became regionally parliamentary, member of a regional council. And my political views, it is communist views, anti-fascist views, anti-imperialist views. Now I am living in Donbass, and I'm member of Union Borotba organization, that we can translate like struggle. First of all, I want to answer on your first question. Russian citizenship I get just 2 years ago, because I had no more possibility to use my Ukrainian passport, and I had no possibility to travel with Ukrainian passport anymore. So I made passport of Russian Federation, and now yes, I am a citizen, have a citizenship of Russia, but I hope that my native city Odessa will be liberated from Ukrainian Nazi fascists. First of all, I want to explain that Ukraine was a peaceful country, and the situation changed. It was 2004, the first Maidan coup, when Yushchenko became president of Ukraine. As you know, Yushchenko had a wife that was direct contacts with CIA, American Special Security Services, and he made everything to make anti-Russian movement more stronger in Ukraine. He helped new neo-Nazi organizations and leaders to get on more powerful positions. He helped them to take some official positions, and he spent a lot of budget money to the development of these organizations and Ukrainian nationalist movements. So when Yanukovych became a president of Ukraine, nationalist movement of Ukraine was very strong. But it was not enough forces to take power in all country. It was a long process. It was process not of 1 year or 2 years. This process started in 2004, and then maybe earlier, but in the bright form, it was in 2004. And in 2010, when Yanukovych became a president, he had relations with Paul Manafort. It is American political technologist who suggested to Ukrainian President Yanukovych to make a far-right party Svoboda more stronger. Why he advised this to Yanukovych? Because Yanukovych made social studies of public opinion, and he understood that the next elections he will lose if any of Ukrainian politics will get to the second tour of president elections. So he listened advice of American political technologist Paul Manafort, and this advice was to make far-right party very strong, and to make their leader to have ability to get in the second tour of president elections. And society, Ukrainian society, will not accept far-right fascist leader of this Svoboda party. His surname is Tegnibok, and will support you, Yanukovych, and you will win. So Yanukovych listened this advice and began to help far-right party Svoboda to make their positions more stronger. This party get a lot of money. This party get possibility to participate in all central TV channels, in all debates. Their rating rate began to grow. They participated in resistance with some oligarch groups that were against Yanukovych too, and it was useful for Yanukovych. So the Ukrainian state grew up this political party, far-right political party. In 2012, when were elections in Ukrainian parliament, party Svoboda take, I don't remember exactly, near 11% of voices, so they get a fraction in parliament of Ukraine. It was really bad tragedy for all our country and all our people, because we have specific laws in Ukraine. For example, if you are parliamentary, nobody can arrest you, and policemen, they are afraid of your advisors, and every parliamentary have a lot of advisors, maybe 25, I don't remember exactly, but more than 20. So every far-right parliamentary give such status of advisor of parliamentary for the street neonazis. They feel strong and they begin to attack police. They begin to make some criminal business, and so on and so on. So in the end of 2013, when Maidan, the first Maidan started, the main force that was like a fist of this movement, it was far-right people who had their own parliamentaries that can help if they will be arrested. So Yanukovych and Ukrainian state, they grew up the force that killed them. Because Yanukovych did not study the lesson of history that you cannot make relations with fascists. Unfortunately, fascists were successful and made coup, and of course, they could not do it without imperialist support. Of course, they were imperialist puppets. We understand all these things, but they were the main force that were able to take this power, and they took it. Yanukovych ran away, and anti-Maidan movement started, because millions of people in Ukraine did not accept what happened in the country. They thought that president and police will win in this battle, and all leaders of far-right coup, these oligarchs who paid money and politics which were affiliated with Western countries, they will be arrested. But unfortunately, it were not so. In 2014, in February of 2014, the situation was very hot, and millions of people, as I said, they did not support it. What happens? They began to participate in meetings, demonstrations that gathered thousands of people. In my native city, in Odessa, the situation was the same like in Donbass, in Kharkov, in Crimea, in the central Ukraine, like Zaporozhye or Dnieper, because mostly these regions are Russian regions. Russian people lives here. And mostly people, maybe 90-95% people of this region, southeast of Ukraine, they are Russian-speaking people. So when the new state, Nazi state, and far-right, far-liberal state began to take power, this state began to violate human rights. They made a new law that we cannot speak Russian language and so on. When anti-Maidan movement started, I can tell about my native city because I did not participate in my anti-Maidan movement of Donbass or other cities. But I can tell about the situation in Odessa. In my native city, situation was not so difficult like in other regions, because maybe 85% of people were against new state, against coup, and support of Nazi state was very, very little. And our demands were to have opportunity to speak our native Russian language, to have opportunity to elect a governor on the regional parliamentary sessions. I mean, when all deputies of regional council can elect governor, because till that moment, Ukraine central state, they sent their own governor to the region, every region. But we did not want it to have a governor from Western Ukraine or with political views of Bandera and so on. So it was the second demand. The third demand was to have a special economical zone. We had a period in the history of our city, in the history of Odessa. This period calls Porto Franco. That was in our city was created a zone, a free trade zone, Porto Franco, and this was it was a very good stimulation for development of the city. So people remember this experience, and they wanted to get a new one, Porto Franco zone, because all taxes that we gather in Odessa region, they are going to the Kiev. Some of them are stolen. Politics steal this money, and then they give us less of money, of these taxes. So we wanted to change these schemes. Another our demand was for these police departments, the main will be local councils, but not Ukrainian ministry. Because Ukrainian ministry can use these local police departments for repressions against us. We understood this, and we wanted that these local departments of police will listen orders of regional councils, but not central ministry and Kiev state. So we wanted autonomy. We wanted to live in such way. And when I was parliamentary of regional council, I suggested to vote for a referendum about creation Odessa Autonomic Republic inside Ukraine. This question was, and it included this terminology, Odessa Autonomic Republic inside Ukraine. So we were not separatists in this moment, but our peaceful protest was drowned in the blood and burned in a fire of trade union building 2nd of May of 2014. Nobody wanted to listen us. They wanted to kill us, and they wanted to make a really terrorist act that will, after this act, all people will be frightened and will stop to demand what they wanted. So after the 2nd of May, we understood that there are no way back, that Ukraine was killed. Ukraine was burned in a fire of trade unions building. We understood that we cannot live in one country anymore since that moment. It's important to understand that conflict in Ukraine started not now. It started not 1 year ago. It started in 2004, when the first coup was successfully done. In 2014, 10 years later, one of the sides which were fighting in Ukraine, this side win. This side captured state power. This side began to violate human rights and laws and to make pressure to another side of society, of Ukrainian society. Russian-speaking, Russian-thinking society, pro-Soviet society. So these people, millions of people, began to suffer. And hot phase of this conflict, of course, it was in 2014. It started in 2014, after the 2nd of May massacre, after the massacre in Mariupol in 9th of May of 2014, after the bomb shelling of Ukrainian jets of Lugansk city, when military jets organized bomb shelling of civil area. Of course, people uprised against a new state. A new state tried to destroy this resistance and used army against people of the same country, of their country. Ukrainian army against Ukrainian citizens. And this hot phase were stopped in February of 2015 in Minsk. There were agreements between Ukrainian side of LPR and Donetsk People's Republic and Lugansk People's Republic, and guarantees like Germany, France, and Russian Federation. And all this time, as Merkel said, as Hollande said, they tried not to implement these agreements that were done in Minsk, but they tried to make Ukrainian army, Ukrainian side, Ukrainian Nazi state more to make it more stronger. So they lied us from the early beginning. And it is very important to understand that hot phase of this conflict was not started in 2022. It started many years earlier. In 2022, we understood that Western countries like United States, like Great Britain, like France and others, they send a lot of weapons, a lot of military aids to Ukrainian Nazi army. They train a lot of soldiers, and we understood that they are preparing for a new conflict. Russian Federation organized and started special military operation to break their plans. Of course, in Western countries, we see very strong, very huge hysteric about this. But every clever person will understand the real reasons of this special military operation. And when we liberated a lot of areas, a lot of cities, like Severodonetsk, like Lysychansk, like Kremenная, like Mariupol, we saw that Ukrainian state and Ukrainian nationalists made a lot of crimes. All these years they killed people, they kidnapped people, they made very strong pressure for the people who doesn't support Ukrainian state. And people in these areas, they are talking stories very cruel and very terrible stories, how nationalists, what they did in these areas. I saw by my own eyes the victims of Ukrainian nationalists, the dead bodies that were killed and then were thrown down to the gasoline station tanks with oil. It was very terrible, and we understand that when I was inside trade union building during Odessa massacre, we saw that Ukrainian nationalists, they are like real fascists. They wanted to kill civil people who doesn't support them. And the same we see here in Donbass lands, in Donbass region. So situation now is not easy because Western countries, they are trying to help neo-Nazi state. They send new weapons, new artillery, new bombs, new goods, money for supporting economic, for to make possibility for Ukrainian state to pay payments for their soldiers and their different secret services and so on and so on. So we see that resistance will continue for a long time. But at the same time, we have a big success. Because now we are controlling territory and we liberated territory that are more bigger than Armenia and Belgium, if we will unite this territory of two countries. So now we are controlling more territories than these two countries. So these territories is really big, and in military way, it is many people were died from the both sides and from our side too. So it is not easy to go forward, and we stopped in some positions. But as you know, new wave of mobilization started in September, and till now. Many thousands of people, of new fighters, new soldiers came here in Donbass to take part in anti-fascist resistance in liberation of Ukraine from Nazi state. And so situation now, it is not easy. But the difficulties that we had half a year ago, or maybe 3 months ago, we could solve these problems. And I think that a new offensive will be more successful because we know all mistakes. So we make big work about mistakes. It is difficult to say how many regions will be liberated and how much time we need for this process. In the social way, now situation in areas that we controlled before February of 2022 year, the situation became much better. In the areas that were liberated, situation is very difficult because a lot of buildings, a lot of factories were destroyed by neonazi, or when neonazi used them not like civil infrastructure but used like for military aims, and it was destroyed during the battles. So we need to repair a lot of homes, a lot of electric lines, pipelines, gas tubes, and so on and so on. And Russia makes a very, very big work in this direction. Russia repaired a lot of buildings in Mariupol. They repaired, as I told, the electric lines. They united with electric line, for example, Severodonetsk city with all Lugansk People's Republic, because the city was without electricity. It was broken, and now they have electricity. There are a lot of problems, but work that were done in these months, last months, it is really very, very big work. I hope that sometime later everything will be repaired and we can organize good and peaceful life for people who were liberated from the Ukrainian state. People understand all the difficulties, and but they are ready to wait, and a lot of them stayed in these cities and continue living there in difficult conditions. But when I visited these liberated areas, I talked with many people, and all of them told that we are happy that no more killing from the neo-Nazis will continue here, and we can live free. So these difficulties, they are temporary difficulties, and I believe that they will be solved as quick as it possible. If we are talking about peaceful solution, this is possible variant, but some conditions must be met. And one and the main condition is stop finishing of military supplies from Europe and United States to Ukrainian Nazi government. Because if we will stop our offensive, if we will stop this conflict, Ukraine will get new weapons, new military goods, military aids from Western countries, and this conflict will start again 1 year later, or maybe 2, 3, 5 years later, and we will be in more difficult conditions. So that means that it is possible to make peaceful agreements now and talk with the Ukrainian side about finishing of this conflict, but the main condition must be done. It is stopping finishing of military supplies to Ukrainian Nazi state. If it will be so, if Europe and United States of America will finish send weapons to Ukraine and money to Ukrainian army, we will see that Ukraine is not dangerous for us. But we see that America and the United States and the European Union continue to send new weapons and heavy artillery, tanks, and some specific vehicles, and so on. So we need to solve this problem first. The second condition is to stop of repressions on Ukrainian side. Tens, hundreds of thousands of people hate Zelensky power, Zelensky state, and the government of Ukrainian nationalists. But they cannot say even one word against it. Official information from SBU, Secret Services of Ukraine, was in December that in 2022 year there were 1,200 criminal cases against people who made reposts in social media with some critic of some steps of Ukrainian army or Ukrainian government. Can you imagine that 1,200 it's just official criminal cases, and people get a lot of people get in prison not for fighting against Ukraine but just for their opinion. It's very terrible, and these repressions must be stopped. I don't believe that Ukrainian state will agree with these conditions. So I think it is not very real to talk about some peaceful solution now. When Ukrainian side will be ready for this, and when Western countries will be ready for this solution and will stop supplies of weapons and techniques and artillery, we can talk about some peaceful agreements. But if we are talking about our world, our situation in Ukraine, it is the part of global processes, world processes. And this process calls the capitalist crisis of capitalist system. We see that this global economy feels very bad. Feels very strong crisis, and humanity have just two ways out of this crisis. One way it is to change liberal market economy and implement socialist economy, planning economy. Another way is to eat another parts of this global system, to continue to sell their goods on these territories. As you know, our economy is global now, but it has different poles, different economical subsystems, like European economical subsystem, post-Soviet economical subsystem, and others. So that means that all that we see in the world and in Ukraine, especially, it is part of all this global resistance between imperialist center that are in United States, that is in United States of America, because United States are controlling emission of the main world currency, dollar, and in the United States are main centers of accumulation of capitals. So we see the resistance between this center and some different subsystems, like European economical subsystem, against post-Soviet economical subsystem. And many years Russian leadership, of course it is capitalist leadership, but they sent a lot of messages to Western countries, to Western leaders, that they want to be like a part of all this global system. But capitalist crisis, crisis of imperialist system, world imperialist system, showed them that they cannot be part of this system, and somebody have to be eaten in economical way, of course. They understood that they have two ways, or they have to resist to these processes, or to lose their power, to lose their sovereignty, and they could not accept these demands, these circumstances. So they chose a way of resistance, and they began this resistance, because another way it is to just to give to the imperialists Russian country, and they will eat it in economical way. So I think it is impossible to solve this problem in a peaceful way. I think that this conflict will continue in a hot phase, maybe not so long, but in a not a hot phase in economical forms. It will be very long conflict, and now Russia is like a ram against imperialist center, and this ram can broke all imperialist system. Not because Russian elites are very socialist, no, but because they understand that they have no place for them in this system, and they have just two ways: or die economically and politically, or to resist, and they choose the way of resistance. It is very good for us, for proletarian people from Russia, from Ukraine, and I think for proletarian of Europe and United States too, because if imperialist system will be broken, it will we, like proletarians, will get a new chance to build new society based on the new economical principles. Principles of planned economy, new technologies, without private property on the industry, banks, and so on. Makes not harm for Russian elites. They make harm first of all for Russian people, because Russian elites they doesn't suffer from these sanctions. Of course, some of them lost their business, but not all. And of course, they feel, maybe some of them, some part of elites, they feel not so good like it was before a special military operation. But mostly they feel themselves very good. But some people cannot buy some goods, and it is maybe there are some difficulties for people, but I think that sanctions did not receive their aims because all goods that we cannot buy directly from the Europe, people can buy it in some another ways. For example, these goods are going to Armenia or Kazakhstan or some other countries that doesn't accept politics of sanctions against Russia, or Turkey, and Russian people can buy all these goods. Yes, some of them became a little bit expensive, more expensive, but it is not like a very global problem for people. We have all goods. If you want to drink Coca-Cola, you can do it. If you want to buy some telephone like Apple, you can do it in Lugansk, even in Lugansk. Of course, in Russia you can do it too. Maybe you will pay a little bit more money. It will be not like a real reason that people will change their opinion about special military operation, about liberation of Ukraine, about policy of Russian elites, because they have pay 3,000-5,000 rubles more for a telephone. I think these sanctions did not achieve their aims. But in economical way, if we will see from the point of view of all Russian economy, of course Russia feels some difficulties because European Union buy not so many gas and oil like it have bought last years, and Russian budget have not so many money like it had before. You know that officially Russia finished this year with deficit of budget, but for example the year before, 2021 year, it finished with big profit. But Russia have very big reserve, so these difficulties will not have a big influence on the politics of Russian Federation in Ukraine and with the relationship with United States and Europe. I think that sanctions did not receive their aims. In general, situation in left movement of post-Soviet area and in Donbass and Ukraine, Russian Federation, is very difficult because special military operation and the situation after the Maidan coup in 2014, they made split in left movement more big, more wide. So a lot of organizations support special military operation, and a lot of organizations does not support because I think the main reason is that they are affiliated with different imperialist structures, different NGOs, funds, foundations like Soros Fund, like USAID, UKAID, different Freedom House, IRI, National Endowment for Democracy Fund, Foundation, and so on and so on. I think this is the main reason why some part of left movement did not support special military operation in Ukraine. Their main motivation, main slogan, it is that this is a fighting of two imperialists. Of course, this is untrue because imperialism, it is a stage of the all global economy, and all global economy. World economy have just one center, and this center exists in United States of America because United States are controlling emission of a main world currency, dollar, and in the United States are main centers of accumulation of capitals. So it is not in Russia. So that means that We cannot make equality between Russian Federation and United States, and we, like left forces, we need to make everything to break hegemony of dollar, hegemony of United States, and break all imperialist system. I believe that situation will change, and we can that humanity have just one way out of this situation. It is creating of socialist system. No pasaran.